Nigeria Economic Summit wants a federal government to revisit subsidy removal. Federal government seeks 225 billion naira in new bond auction. Oil prices slip on OPEC cut in demand forecast. Asia Pacific markets trade mostly lower ahead of China activity data release. This is Business Express on a network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA, and we are reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Leah Kating Babatunde. You're welcome. A very good morning to you from the Nigerian Television Authority. It is day 2 of the Nigeria Economic Summit, the 28th edition. But we'll start the program by informing you that the House of Representatives at its reconvened sitting received 3 referrals from President Muhammadu Buhari for consideration and approval. House Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila read the communication at plenary.
CT 2022 budget proposal prioritizes improvement in healthcare services, job creation, youth empowerment, social welfare services, education, and increased productivity in agriculture. Please accept, Right Honorable Speaker, the assurances of my highest regard. Yours sincerely, M. Buhari.
We remain with the National Assembly, where the Ministry of Labour and Employment has proposed 9.4 billion naira in its 2023 fiscal year. This was when the Minister, Dr. Chris Ngige, appeared for a budget defense session before the House of Representatives.
6,538,357 naira.
Why is it that money released to you, that there is the expenditure is not there, no utilization?
You have about 171 million lying fallow in your account.
Do you advertise? If yes, that you really advertise, why are you doing selective funding?
But what happened is that the releases also came late. And for those who are asking about selective treatment, no, it's Ministry of Finance that does the release.
Now, the federal government says it will conduct its regular monthly bond auction with a target to raise 225 billion naira to further bridge its budget deficit. The Debt Management Office, DMO, which oversees government's bond issuances and general debt management, will be raising 225 billion naira through reopenings of 3 previously issued mid to long-term bonds. The bonds being reopened include a 14.55% 10-year bond, which matures in April 2029. Also being reopened is the 12.5% 10-year bond, which matures in April 2032, and the long-term 16.2499% 20-year bond with maturity date of January 2037. The previous stop rates for the 3 bonds were 14.5%, 15%, and 16%. Now, our experts have converged day 2 at the Hilton right here in Abuja for a continuation of the Nigeria Economic Summit, the 28th edition. Now we just have a compendium of the opening session yesterday. Of course, I started out that session yesterday, and so just let's give you update of what transpired.
Bring you up to speed on some of the things that have happened so far. Firstly, the event moments ago was declared open by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, and prior to that, he gave some reaction to some issues raised by members of the opening plenary session. The focus this year is 2023 and beyond, and just as the theme says, priorities for shared prosperity. Talking prosperity, that is what the Vice President had to say in his opening remarks. Let's take a listen.
And we must again commend the organizers for their tenacity in not only ensuring that the summit holds and has held unfailingly for 27 years, but also for maintaining the depth and breadth of interactions, always with remarkable objectivity and a high sense of responsibility. The theme for this summit, 2023 and beyond, Priorities for Shared Prosperity, calls on us to reflect on what our priorities should be to attain inclusive prosperity from 2023 and beyond. And this is an important question, especially given the frightening headwinds of the past 3 years and the emerging local and global trends that will most certainly define the future. We are, to borrow an expression, buffeted on all sides. Local security and economic challenges, global turbulence on the political, economic, and social fronts, the Russia-Ukraine war and tensions amongst great powers, all of these impacting food prices, impacting macroeconomic indices, and of course disruptions also to democratic governance here and there, especially in West Africa. The global economy is yet to recover fully from the effects of COVID-19, especially debts that were racked up to cope with the economic slowdown, and there is continuing disruption of global supply chains. Added to these, of course, are all the existential challenges around climate change, especially droughts, flooding, and we've seen the very severe consequences of that in many of our states here in Nigeria. So given this background, it's clear that our work is cut out for us and that we have to choose our priorities very carefully going forward. There are, of course, a whole gamut of things that require our attention, and many have been well captured, not just by some of the comments that have been made already and some of the remarks and speeches that have been made already. But we also have a comprehensive documentation, as the Minister of Finance has said, in our National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. But permit me the liberty of sharing just one or two of these priorities. I cannot, of course, be anywhere near as eloquent as Atador Peterside in his submissions on the low-hanging fruits. Neither can I even be anywhere near as direct as some of the things that he suggests. But I must say, that I look forward eagerly to joining you also on that side, where I can, on an annual basis, insult the government to my heart's content. But the first of these, some of these indicators, is the improving macroeconomic conditions. I think on the positive side, the economy continues to grow with GDP growth at 3.54%, as we've heard, in the second quarter of this year. Non-oil revenues are also up, and they continue to improve, especially since some of the initiatives in the Finance Act. For instance, the increase in VAT from 5% to 7.5% led to an increase in revenues by as much as 69% above the target for 2021. While also in the same period, corporate income tax increased by 15.5% above target. Customs duties also went up by 10% above target. And independent revenues of our government were up by 17.8%.
Vice President was coming from somewhere, and that somewhere are the issues raised by members of the opening panel session comprising the Minister of Finance and key members of the private sector. But the panel session actually is a follow-up to the keynote address given by none other but renowned businessman Pascal Dozier. Pascal Dozier is the last of his generation, those who started the Nigeria Economic Summit Group.
We must work towards concentric diversification. As earlier mentioned by my colleague, the Honorable Minister of State, while different sectors are at different levels of growth, there is none of the sectors that is growing high enough, except for maybe the information and technology sector that continues to grow on a consistent basis. Our agricultural sector has been reporting growth, but the growth has been slow and very steady, and that's not what we need. We need to be able to really grow agriculture on an exponential basis, and it means we have to concentrate on not just production, but as well as processing and exporting agricultural produce to be able to earn foreign exchange income to our country. We must also be able to mobilize external resources, and I'm not talking about loans here. I'm talking about resources from sources like the diasporas. So we must design programs and projects and instruments that will incentivize diasporas to bring in their resources into our country and actually select projects that they want to invest or develop in. If you look at Ethiopia, for example, if you've been to Ethiopia recently, you find that most of the development, apart from the major infrastructure such as roads and lights that is put in by government, the major contribution is from diasporas. And the government consciously designed a program to encourage diasporas to bring in their income. Finally, we must also tackle head-on the need to reduce poverty and actually make life easy for us. So we constantly say we have witnessed 7 consecutive quarters of growth, and it is true. But this growth has not permeated to the citizen. The citizen is still buying food in high prices from the market. So we need to look at how we can reduce the high cost of food prices, and that means we need to look at how we can better handle inflation. Because inflation in Nigeria today, the highest push in inflation is the food component. And the food inflation is driven largely by high cost of transportation, which is largely also driven by high cost of energy. So we must address that energy source.
There are many unemployed citizens. Poverty is rife in the country. But let me link it back to this theme. We're talking about shared prosperity. Let me tell you what I think as an economist is one of our biggest problems. And it's not too difficult to solve. You see, Pascal spoke about what happens when the two dangerous groups, criminals and government. What he should have said was that the intersection of a few criminals in government is what leads to some of these biggest problems. And please, I'm not casting doubt on any single person, but I want to understand some issues. You see, rigged prosperity is the cause of poverty for many. Because what happens is that when we take serious economic policy issues and we allow a few people to rig them in a way that it benefits them, but to the detriment of millions of Nigerians, then what you have is that a few people become very rich and millions of people become very poor, and it's unnecessary. And there are three areas. Number one, oil theft. And from the Niger Delta, oil theft, we talk about, people say up to possibly 500,000 barrels. Can anybody, please, some of us from the Delta area, if you go to the little oil thief doing illegal refinery, he will tell you he has no hand in bringing any ship to Nigeria. That's for the big boys. So what kind of person can bring a ship to Nigeria to load crude oil if he does not have friends in government? So I talk about criminals and government together. The second area, petrol subsidy. Nigeria is one of the only countries in the world where the higher the price of crude oil, the more petrol we import. Very simple reason. The evidence is circumstantial. With the price of crude oil going very high, the potential for arbitrage, the profit widens. When it widens, the criminal gangs that are involved in the subsidy business find more creative ways to falsify documents, make Nigeria pay for shipments that never got here, or bring in shipments, some of which finish up going back outside the country. So again, the combination of criminals and government. And then the third one is the foreign exchange. You see, the foreign exchange system that we have, if you're lucky, again, a handful of people, I think there are less than 1 million Nigerians today who have access to foreign exchange at the official rate. And so if a handful of people with the right parentage and the right connections get a chance to make a fortune. So again, rigged prosperity of a few impoverishes millions of others. And it's worse than that because the foreign exchange policy is not something that is understood, it's not scientific, it's multiple exchange rates. Sometimes, because the playing field is not level, let's imagine there are three of us in the same business. Well, I have the right parentage. If I get foreign exchange at 450, I may get impatient and sell my goods at 550, 650. The other two people with poorer parents have to buy at the parallel market. My activities can bankrupt them.
Government is very important for business. In fact, when they say government has no business in business, I say that is such a falsehood. Government has business in business because they set the tone, they create the environment. The budget is an instrument actually to incentivize the private sector to act. So you can see that if government starts wobbling, the private sector will wobble. So we must pay attention to government. The state is very critical, especially in our stage of development, in making the transition, the diversity she was referring to. When we pronounce diversity, it just doesn't come natural. Diversity is not a natural phenomenon. You need to create it. And the state, in partnership with the private sector, has to create that diversity. On the inclusion that you referred to, you know, it's like my earlier point. First, the baking of the cake must have all hands on deck. It's just that the sharing of the cake has not engendered us to perform at our best. If I know that the prosperity of today will escape me, but my children will benefit from it, I'm likely to work hard.
Okay, we'll be bringing you updates later in the day towards the end of the summit. But we move away from that summit and join ADAM for surviving COVID-19.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central
Repair equipment. Wow, it has been long ago. I'm a DJ by profession, and this is by the side, but DJ is what I do. That's my passion. It really affected our business because at that time there was lockdown everywhere. No going out, no coming in, no parties and no repairs. So it really affected us. It affected us more than every other people because those that are selling food stuff, they can be in their house and sell, but we cannot come out and we cannot do parties and we cannot repair. Equipment didn't get spoiled at that period, so business was in total lockdown. Yeah. Well, you know, grace is always available for we the children of God. So as of that time, God made provision. God made provision and we are able to pass that period. Before COVID, during COVID and now, I won't lie to you, everything has tripled the price now, so it has really affected our businesses. Everything, you go to the market and buy something for 1,000, next time you go, it will be 4,000 or 3,000. So it has really affected us negatively. And you know, everybody's complaining dollar, 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 from 150 to 800 going to 1,000. That has really affected things that they import, and it is really affecting us because everything we do here, there's no one that we are producing here. They import everything, so it has skyrocketed the prices. So it's really affecting us negatively. Unlike before COVID, before COVID, it was really, the price were at least manageable. But now, there's nothing to write home about the prices in the market now.
So did you hear about the CBN loan for medium and small businesses?
I've not gotten it, and I don't believe I'll get it from CBN. So, but if I were to get loan, I know it will really help my business because there's a lot of equipment that I need that I don't have, and we can only get it through finance.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership.
Well, that is how some people feel about such interventions, but I must tell you authoritatively that indeed a lot have benefited and are already paying back their loans, as we have tracked and brought some of them right here on this program. We move from there to the exchange market to find out how the Naira is exchanging for other currencies. And it was a bearish start for stocks at the Nigerian capital market, where the NGX All Share Index declined by 0.34% to close Monday's session at 43,818.12 points. Market deals was 3,326, while volume closed out the session at 187.094 million shares, while value was stood at 2.5 billion naira. Market capitalization closed out the session after dipping by over 70 billion naira to 23.8 trillion naira. Let's take a look at how the global market is faring, as put together by Bosley.
European markets are heading for a mixed opening this Tuesday as investors gauge the economic outlook in the region and wider global economy. The mixed sentiment comes after a choppy session in the United States on Monday after comments from Federal Reserve leaders about interest rate hikes. Shares in the Asia-Pacific were mostly higher Tuesday following the meeting between its President Xi Jinping and U.S. President Joe Biden. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index rose 3.68%, lifted by the Hang Seng Tech Index that climbed 6.81%. In mainland China, the Shanghai Composite advanced 1.64% and the Nikkei also topped 0.10%. U.S. stock futures were higher Tuesday morning after ending the previous day lower, snapping a two-day advance that started when a better-than-expected inflation report strengthening hopes that the Federal Reserve will soon ease up on rising interest rates. Futures tied to the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 137 points. S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq 100 futures also gained. No figures yet from African markets as at the time of this report.
And this is where we end this episode of the program. Business Express will return Wednesday at 3 p.m. Don't forget, you can access this episode and all previous episodes on YouTube on the NTA's channel. You can also communicate with us via our various social media handles. Stay in touch with NTA. News Desk at 10 comes up shortly. My name is Leah Katumba Batunde saying, have a blessed day and God bless Nigeria.